Well, hello everyone. Hello, you juicy
Hello.
people. We're back. We've been on
Yeah.
a short hiatus over the holidays, but now we're back to watching Firefly again. And this is us going to watch episode 9, which is Ariel. If you're ready, MauLer, and I'm ready, then we'll start our videos and we'll start talking about this thing. So, shall I count us down?
Let's do it.
Alrighty. 3, 2, 1, go. Look at that beautiful Firefly.
Yeah. Nice to be back, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was the actual kind of vibe that I get episodically or whenever I rewatch this sort of stuff is I find Serenity comfortable. And it's not just the ship itself, it's also the characters. It's just comfy. Everything here. I pretty much like everyone, and I like how different they are from each other.
Well, I like that a lot of episodes do start with this kind of slice of life aboard the ship.
Yeah.
You know, when everyone's just doing their thing, they're hanging out, chatting away, eating, drinking. It's all good. It does add to that feeling of this ship isn't just like a vehicle for getting around. It's a home for them.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
And notably, this is the only episode without Book. Shepherd Book is not around in this one, I believe.
Yeah. This is kind of interesting.
I think he's the only main cast member, to not appear in one of the episodes. So, I don't know, maybe it's something on.
But no, this is kind of a Simon and River and Jane centric episode.
Yes.
And it's nice to have River back in it, because I feel like I said this in the last couple of episodes, I think she'd been very much pushed into the background and they didn't really have much for her to do.
Well, it's a remarkable fucking challenge, right? To be designing something that we need to care about and understand 9 different characters. It's like, so who's falling behind right now? And I would have said it's like River's definitely the one that needs some work, but it's funny, this episode and the next one, I think, do a nice bit of she would, if you capture what the audience is supposed to get the most from her, it would be intrigue. Just constantly letting us know there's something more here.
Yeah. Oh, it's like companions have to go in for an MOT.
While we're ever.
It's good. It's great how he just held his gaze there while he did it.
I also like this sort of trope. This happens a couple of times in the season where they lull you into everything being normal and then something fucking really dramatic happens.
I mean, when I watched that, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of start to speculate as you prefer, especially with the nature of her abilities, that it's like a combination of her brain being completely fried, or is it some kind of like manifestation of her recognizing that he's a threat to them? And maybe her subconscious is acting out. I really enjoyed this sort of dynamic again, that they keep so consistent. You can tell Mal is already struggling with like, what decision exactly am I going to make here, considering one of my crew just knifed another one. Like, that is unacceptable. But she is crazy. And then you've got Jane is already being like, right, this is what happens, this. And you could tell Mal is like, you don't fucking make the orders here, bud. Like, stop pretending you do.
I mean, because it obviously provides you with a little bit of justification for what Jane does in this episode.
Yes.
Because it is obviously a very shitty thing to do, but it's like, well, you know, she did try to kill him. And so...
Well, so his whole argument there is correct. And I think this scene, or this moment here, is to recognize that. It's like, Mal may be telling him to back off, but he's also telling Simon, you've got a shit ton of new restrictions. And he's very serious about it. I would happily say that just every episode will have several scenes that remind you of why Mal is the best character, the most interesting one.
I did love as well about this episode, like, as much as Out of Gas shows you how far he'll go to protect his crew and try and, you know, put things right, this shows you what he'll do if you cross him and you betray his trust.
Oh, I love it so much. It was the main thing I remembered about the episode, but I was like, well, there's plenty of other good stuff in here as well.
Oh, yeah. And off she goes. Yeah, I remember you saying that one of the subplots that they had in mind for Inara, the actress let slip, was that she was actually dying.
Yes, that's something I read. There's a couple of alternate theories or implications about what was going to happen. There was a big old article about the nature of Firefly being cancelled and how idiotic a lot of executives were. I don't know if you know this.
What do you mean were?
Yeah. There was like a simultaneous request that Joss Whedon make Firefly a lot more light and humorous because it's too like dark as is, but simultaneously they asked that Mal shoot more people dead.
Right.
So it's like, okay. I guess we need some funny killing more. Which, to be fair, they do have a couple of funny kills in this, but it's not the kind of thing. I think it would like lessen it if you see it all the time.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, the more this stuff happens, the less significant it actually becomes, and it's like, well, okay, you can't have both. Like, if you're going to have deaths be meaningful, then it has to be a rare thing.
Yeah. I think Joss Whedon wrote this intro as well, the music. He had some experience with Once More with Feeling on Buffy.
Oh, yeah. Like his musicals.
And yeah, I kind of enjoy banking on this dynamic. He would have details that would make something like a hospital vulnerable to people like them, but hasn't had any interest in giving it away to them because he actually like wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
But now,
as a doctor himself, like, it's kind of, that's his thing.
We got us a heist episode.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, that's a bit of a dodgy deal on his part, because it's like, okay, the payment, you still have to take all the risks in order to get it. I'm just going to show you how to get it.
Yeah, he's done his best to leverage his information being his part, so to speak, almost, and then he gets his reward, which is everything with River. And that's covering them morally. They were very
we can give this away and help people.
It'll not make things worse in the hospital, okay? They'll be okay.
Yeah. There's the planning sequence.
You gotta love it. The attempt to come across more sci-fi than your average, just, plans and schematics and stuff. So we got screens and everything, but
yeah,
I'll take it these days over sci-fi goo. I mean, CG goo.
More black goo.
CG goo everywhere.
Kind of interesting to see Simon take the lead on something like this, because he doesn't normally have this level of involvement with anything.
Yes, and I believe you could argue that a lot of that's just come up now because he realizes their position is a tad tenuous on the ship, depending on River's health, and it's about time he actually tries to do something about that.
Yeah.
Which, again, in relation to medicine, he always seems to gain quite a backbone, and you see that quite a bit in this episode. I think the part that he just threw there, by the way, was the same, at least type of part that he needed in Out of Gas.
Might as well reuse that prop.
This place looks sci-fi enough.
It's so funny, eh? They're literally just in a city filming. They got the little sci-fi, cars in the background though.
Yeah, they tried.
Space cars. It's actually kind of interesting seeing them in a more advanced culture rather than just being in a sort of Western village like they usually are.
Well, it's why this show, more than almost any, deserved its chance, because it could do so much. There's so many places it could go. And it wasn't like Westworld or The Matrix where you almost get there easily by changing everything. It's like this is a world crafted from the whole history they wrote for it. That means we get cowboy shit and hyper sci-fi shit, and then the cross between through the nature of like the wars that have been fought and the spread of the in the same way that you can kind of get that out of maybe the Alien universe.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't really get its chance, or at least, got as far as it could.
Don't worry, MauLer. One day I'm going to bring it back. I'll find a way.
Well, I think that the general sentiment from most Firefly fans these days is don't bring it back now. It's too late.
Okay. Yeah, it's true.
Because of what you end up seeing. I'm particularly fond of this setup and payoff. The amount of effort. And how he mentioned to him that getting in is like the more difficult part for them, while once you're in the hospital, moving around in it, that's kind of the easy part, which is the complete opposite of what ends up happening.
Yeah. Just got to bluff your way through.
Of course, Jane's having the most trouble.
Yeah, he doesn't really strike me as a technobabble kind of guy.
Still, it's I like how pissed off he gets, and then the payoff being that he's learned it, and he's actually kind of proud of himself for learning it, and he's annoyed. It's not something
he would be though.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive they were able to mock that up.
Yeah, I think we skipped a decent chunk of time, but that's how it's done. Apparently that little prop they're using for prop vehicle, it's like a modified hind attack helicopter, a Russian one.
Yes, yeah, you can tell by the shape of it. Like when Wash was throwing us, the prop at it.
I don't know if it was that or if it's something else, but there was like a vehicle prop from Firefly that fans found in some like junkyard, and that they did like a little Kickstarter or something to try and earn enough money to buy it out of the junkyard. It's like preserve it as a cool little museum piece of Firefly stuff. Imagine
if you could just have that in your back garden. Just go and sit in it whenever you want. Think about Firefly, shed a little tear. It's helicopters make great sci-fi, like the basis of sci-fi vehicles. I think the dropship in Aliens is the nose of that is just like an Apache or something that they were able to get, like the cockpit section, and it looks great.
I think we went past as well. They gave focus to Jane when he said, "As long as I get paid, I'm happy," which is like, just I feel the episode being like, and you're like, okay, that's fine, and you're like, oh, you wait.
Yeah, it's like every time you think he's turned a corner, he takes a little step backwards.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I think the way that shows at least take you into a level of familiarity and comfort is that he can talk a big game about like how I'm here for as long as it's worth my while, and we see him get stretched thin a couple of times in other episodes, but this is the first time he truly has a really good chance, and it's a lot of money, and so I feel like the show was like, well, he would do it. That is who he is, and that is who we have built him to be. So it's time to show what that would play out as. And the part I almost find more interesting is how Mal is able to put it together, and then what we understand about him as a result of that betrayal. But like, it's safe to assume it's a bit of a breaking point for Jane that he's it just is weighed up.
I like how the body bag, I think it's the roof rack for a car.
It doesn't look well. It looks like the kind of thing that's like that was probably cheaper than that it could ever be implied to be as part of a sci-fi show.
Yeah.
But that's the way you do it, right? So you get the show made.
I mean, that's got to be the constant pain in the arse with sci-fi shows. Like, you can never just have it set in a regular old building with normal stuff. Everything has to be dressed up in a sci-fi setting. I like that.
It's just like, I am not letting all that work go to waste. But if anything, it made them more suspicious. Yeah, as long as you add sci-fi sounds to anything, really, it makes it.
It is literally a roof box. It's great.
And it's also, there's so much repurposed stuff. Like, if you check any trivia for any of these episodes, you'll have we mentioned one of the repurposed Starship Troopers stuff.
Yeah,
they've got a lot of like, they share some stuff with TNG, I think, or at least like repurposed stuff from the older episodes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think they almost have just prop warehouses where you've just got generic sci-fi equipment that you can borrow for any production, which is great. I think some of them as well, like, you can just buy bits, bits of machinery, bits of like electrical equipment, computers, that sort of thing, and just make stuff out of it. And I just think that would be so much fucking fun to go in there.
It's crazy. It may sound a little nuts, but I almost wish there were harder times for some of these productions, because when you go into any given huge project, TV show and movie these days, they'll have an enormous department that makes 1 billion fucking costumes, and then it's like, we ended up using just 1 or 2, and you're like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, and it's like all designed from amazing concept art. And it's like, look at all this fucking work that goes toward nothing. Meanwhile, it feels like shows like this, they are at the razor's edge of everything falling apart, but they hope you don't notice.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just find something more admirable about that everybody on the set is working real fucking hard to get this working.
Well, yeah, and I think often it forces the writers to put that much more effort into like just the character work, the dialogue, all that sort of thing, just to like get you more invested in it, like, because they know they have to earn that attention some other way than just visual spectacle, and that's what it should be. I'd much rather have that than and a show that looked pretty cheap than something that looked like $1 million and just garbage work.
We've had definitive proof of that. So many of the what I considered greatest shows of all time started out with seasons that were downright ugly or horrifying to look at, but had the writing there. Meanwhile, you get shows that look incredible that have no writing there and die.
Yeah.
And yeah, see, it's supposed to be a cakewalk while you're inside. Some guy just asks some basic questions and they do not give good answers.
Yep.
I quite liked that, by the way. You could tell he was deciding, like, is that enough for me to want to check your shit? And it's like, yeah, it is, actually. Like, you should know.
Yeah. Yeah, because they can quite often fall into the trap with things like this, where the sort of NPC characters like that are just monumentally dumb and gullible, just because it's in service of the plot, but they just wanted a funny moment or a bit of tension building. But here it's like, no, actually kind of raises the alarm. Like, there's a problem here.
I am extremely fond of this whole bit here. There's a lot going on. First of all, that line, "This is where you should be," which it's already good enough as a recognition that we know all of what Simon's sacrifices are for getting River to anything close to a better life. But the fact that she recognizes it too, despite being most of the time essentially catatonic or vacant. Those casual little lines.
What else is in there?
Well, yeah, and it's just when she gets lucidity, you know that there's a person in there who appreciates what he's done more than anyone could realize. And then, of course, just on his end, just how much he is sacrificing to the point where he's so invested in, life saving the work of a doctor and stuff that he's almost forgotten the mission he's actually on right now just to make sure this guy makes it. And then how much fervor is in his, chastising this other doctor that's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's very engaging, I find, in terms of character stuff.
Because it's like a little slice of, And
dude, her smile there, like she's watching him in where he should be, because he's really fucking good at it. It's like Jane the whole time. She's like, "What the fuck are we doing? Like, what's happening?" And it's just good shit. Look at her; she's so proud of him. He's just confused. He's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I think they were very much at that point where it's like, you're not going to talk your way out of this one.
I like Zoe's short to the point dialogue and also a deadpan sort of deliveries.
Yeah, she's a good right hand man.
Oh well, I mean, we'll be able to talk about it in the next episode, but I quite like their the dynamic that they don't skimp on it. It's banked on several times. Mal and Zoe.
Yeah.
The classic.
That's pretty good. And it's great because, like, all of this stuff that was supposed to be super easy for them is actually turning out to be, as you say, much more complicated. But they're fudging their way through it.
This is what makes for interesting storytelling. Is that it would be boring if everything worked out. You gotta have things go wrong. You gotta love those buttons that when you press them turn from one color to another one.
I know. Why don't we have them on our computers at home?
I know.
It's so much more fun.
So if eagle-eyed viewers pause where he looks at his arm in this scene, I think for the drugs, he's got like a list. I think I think a lot of them are real, or whether or not this fictional doesn't matter. But the one at the bottom is listed. It's like Filian something. Mostly for his surname. Philiazaxid or so. Yeah, it's just like a fun little thing.
If you've got the opportunity, of course you're going to put these little in jokes in.
Yeah. Who doesn't love them? What's funny too about the dynamic here, because they are successful in their score technically this episode, which feels unusual with how long we've been with them, that they actually get anywhere with making any kind of money. Mm-hmm. And I do like that that's recognized. It's like, holy shit, we actually got
something money. Worked.
Yeah. But simultaneously, it needs to be lost because their nature as underdogs is always what is the driving force of a lot of the plot lines.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't have them rich. That's never going to work. Or at least not work as well.
This is neat. Like, nice little hologram there. I think that looks pretty good.
Reminds me of when they were doing it in Iron Man, and then it's like it bumps up in 2 and 3, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. And then it went way too far.
Yeah, I remember. I miss like believable tech. Oh dear.
Quite enjoy his performance there. Like he's trying to explain it while simultaneously accepting the information himself.
Hmm. Like his first reaction is to try and grab the hologram and mess with it. Simon's having to deal with a lot of stuff in this episode.
Yeah, and
I mean, because they're obviously in an extremely dangerous situation. He's got to deal with Jane, and he's got to try and keep her calm at the same time.
it's an interesting dynamic for the audience because now we know that he is their enemy, essentially.
Yeah.
And, you can't help but feel bad for, obviously, both of them, while Jane is acting as like a bodyguard for them, but he's the one that's leading them to be captured.
Yeah. And yeah, it's always going to tug at the heartstrings when you see these people who are trusting someone to help them and like they get fucked over by him.
Well, yeah, and that's why, I mean, not to rush too far ahead, but I like that they play up, he does have a decent chunk of guilt about this.
Yeah. Dun dun dun. Captured.
Definitely like how the fuck are they getting out of this one?
I just think back in the day, you would have had to sit through a whole commercial break to get to this resolution here.
That's why you buy the box sets. Fun little sci-fi gun pops up.
Yeah, there's always a stun gun, isn't there?
And yeah, I kind of like here they pay attention to a lot of the frequencies, and the fact that someone is talking in code is enough for them to be like, yeah, something's gone wrong. And I don't know. I just appreciate because obviously the feds are coming in as is mentioned, and it's just like they couldn't have come in as fast as they did unless someone's given us up because the plan was too good. I think it was Mal's perspective on this. It's like it's too suspicious.
Yeah.
Like how everyone in the room is like, huh?
Yeah, we've got fugitives here, but yeah, she's saying crazy stuff.
Have to imagine it's greedy is about him.
Yes.
I don't know, man. I just enjoy keeping an eye on her expressions, given what information she probably does have, but isn't processing completely clearly.
It's quite an interesting situation for a character where you're always wondering, like, how much does she understand? How much does she know beyond what she should? It's neat. Keeps you questioning her.
I thought it was very fun seeing your tweet regarding Firefly and its premature cancellation. How much you've been loving it when you haven't even seen Serenity the movie yet.
I know, but the thing is, having seen as much of it as I have, I don't even need to see Serenity. I'm sure that'll be.
All I'll say is,
it's just yeah,
it is an upgrade because the budget goes way up and you get like a full-on movie experience instead of the TV vision. But with all the characters, it's
yeah,
it'll be very fun to cover that. Especially because the script is fucking tight.
And yeah, like even Serenity wasn't a big hit, was it?
No, it wasn't a hit at all. It's what killed it. If that had hit, which everyone in the fucking universe does not know what the hell happened to the audience back then, it's one of those ones.
Yeah.
Ask Gary to talk about it. He'll fucking.
I mean, had they completely accepted, like, yep, the show's over. We're just like, we're lucky we got to do this movie, or was it like maybe we can pull something off here and bring it back from the brink if this is a big hit?
The film ends with the potential for another movie, as well as probably the option for getting more seasons, but it just didn't make enough money. It's unfortunate because to an extent, it's like that probably should decide whether someone is going to want to invest in a thing. It's so unfortunate because I wish you could appeal to them being like, trust me, you need, like, this one's not working, I know, on the numbers, but trust me, you need to get more of this.
It is just that unfortunate pragmatism that you have to go with, where it's just like, why are we going to keep going with this TV show that no one's watching?
And because there's so many TV shows today that you can easily see their downfall is related to their engagement, and that we will often cite it as like it's low because it's shit. But this was not low because it was shit.
Yeah, it just couldn't catch a break, actually, when I think about all the things going on with it. Because it was dumped onto a pretty unfortunate time slot as well, as I understand it. It was like Saturday night or something.
Well, I mean, there's just running theories that I'll say are like close to confirmed that there was a bit of antagonism between Whedon and the executives because of his refusal to keep changing things according to what they wanted. And so it's like there was an attempt at sabotaging it. I mean, ask any Firefly fan who looked at the release of this thing and they'll describe it as sabotage. I don't think it's reasonable to say anything else, to be honest with you. It's like, you don't want this to be successful the way you're releasing it. And yet, hyper influential, right? Like, there's so many different writers for series around this time that would have cited Firefly was fucking great, and do to this day.
Yeah, I mean, because I was going to say as well, like, for a lot of people, this would have had real repercussions for their career. But I guess with Whedon, he still had Buffy and Angel. I mean,
well,
still,
this was out the year that Buffy ended. And Angel had one more season after that, so it all kind of ends with this, and then it's Dollhouse, I think, was next for him.
Yeah, and then getting into movies with like the Avengers and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, broadly speaking,
Justice League happened.
I was going to say, broadly back then, he was totally fine. He was kind of known as like a nerd god sort of thing because of once you get Buffy, Angel, and Firefly all together, were it's too good to ignore sort of thing. Which, hey, maybe we'll make a Buffy and Angel fan out of you someday, because they do reflect this formatting and writing-wise. It's the same production team.
Buffy, MauLer. This isn't my first Buffy rodeo.
Yeah, but
I don't remember as well as you do.
Watch all of it.
No, exactly.
I very much enjoy the creepy vibe of these fellas, and it's mainly down to the actors, their body language, and the fact that they're wearing fucking blue gloves is like the best they could work with. It feels like the cheapest version of trying to make them work just from the way that they look. Because even that prop is so clearly cheap.
Yeah. It's the fact that they don't blink, they just stare right at you.
Yeah. And I actually thought as well, this must be coming close to the line in terms of violence. Whatever line they have, considering they wanted this to be a,
I mean, yeah, because there's a lot of blood going on there, and I guess
you could spook a few people, And you'll be pleased to know, Drinker, because I'm not going to tell you until you get there, obviously. But this is not just shock value. They're going to explain this fully. This will make complete sense once you get the full picture. Because this, I would say, could be constituted as like, really? The bad guys just arrive and kill all of their own bad guys? Like, not quite. That'll make sense at a later date. It wouldn't surprise me, though, and I think there is notation on this, that like at the point of making this, they weren't, locked down on exactly what everything was going to mean. But I mean, that's it's part of what I guess makes a well-rounded good show, right? Because you have the comedy and drama is like standard for every episode, but then you get pieces of horror tossed in, pieces of romance tossed in, pieces of intrigue.
Sure, and I think you can see the foundation that they were laying here that you would have got from subsequent seasons. The potential, and there's so much that could have been done with this if they'd had more time. more time to expand on all these ideas, all these characters, all these factions.
It's the one thing they didn't get from the people who make this happen is confidence. It just wasn't there because, of course, they could get more episodes, bigger seasons, bigger budget. But do you really want to risk that on a show that's just not making the money? But in the alternate universe where I guess someone took a chance on it, who was higher up, you kind of wonder what would have happened. Would it have exploded? I feel like considering Buffy had a rocky first season, and it was only, I think, season 3 that truly, like, it really hit its stride in terms of pop culture, that you'd think Firefly, by the time it hits its 3rd season, would have had the same thing.
I think it's trickier with sci-fi shows.
Yeah.
Just on the basis they don't quite have the same the mass market appeal as something like Buffy. But yeah, for sure. Like there was other shows that were like big successes in the sci-fi field back then. Like I mentioned them before. Like Stargate SG-1 was a super long.
We got the Star Trek shows. You've got even like the X-Files is kind of like a Buffy adjacent, but closer to sci-fi than like a Monster of the Week, but it's usually sci-fi related, right?
Yeah.
But you just assume. I feel like with no context or information, you'd be shown this show. It's like, yeah, of course this would be successful. Why wouldn't it be? And then it's like, it wasn't. You're like, what? Because I mean, the most important part, which is kind of the same for a lot of things like this, is that you nail the characters. As much as sci-fi can be either off-putting or a bit niche for an audience at the given time, you'd think even Mal would be enough to drag people in.
Yeah, and I think I've probably spoken about this before. Like when you talk about Rocky first seasons, things like The Next Generation, even Stargate.
Yeah,
their first seasons, you could tell that they had not got the characters figured out yet. They had very different personalities from what you see afterwards because they have to find that rhythm. But I feel like with this, they're so well drawn that like they wouldn't really have changed them if this had gone to season 4 or 5.
Oh, keep an eye on this. Kaylee's in the wrong position right now, and he's going to switch her. Like, that's unscripted because she wasn't following it back properly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so...
he just grabs her.
And they just kept it in, which I think is so cute that he, like, spins her around into a correct position. You're supposed to be standing.
Because you kind of wonder what was going through the actress's mind. Like, why is he grabbing me? What's going on?
And then probably be like, oh, fuck, right, I'm supposed to be standing here.
Yeah.
And perfect delivery from Nathan Fillion where he says, if you hadn't come, you wouldn't be getting your big payday. Like, he doesn't give him... the emotion of the delivery doesn't match his expression at all.
Yeah.
Which he does a lot, and I love it.
Yeah, I just... no mess in there.
It's just he finally did it. He sold him out.
And yeah, this is Mal being like super cold. I love the way he explains this. He delivers it.
Yeah, and he wants to dig the confession out too. The way I take it is just he's just like getting more and more disappointed. He's just like, can you please stop fucking around and admit to it?
Well, yeah, it's great how he, because like obviously the way he finally gets Mal bought over is to say that he's sorry and like he regrets what he did. But it's like, well, what do you regret? I thought you didn't do anything wrong. It's like
well, and specifically, right? Which I appreciate the fact that he said, please tell them I didn't, like, don't tell them I did that. And I think it's the perfect way to play Jane from a writing perspective, to always imply there's more going on with him in terms of how he cares about this crew than he lets on ever, and that this makes him feel like shit. Having, he saw it easier to compartmentalize in his head because he was just betraying River and Simon, and that was it.
Yeah, and obviously, like, Mal explains his mindset on this very well. Like, you turn against any member of the crew, you're turning against me too. Like, that's how it works now.
You did it to me. And I think at that point, Jane kind of gets it,
Yeah, because obviously from Jane's perspective here, like, he believes that it's over. He's going to die. He just doesn't.
Well, and there's no more pleading to
do
do because the math makes sense. It's all laid out. It's like, you probably should die for this.
It's a nice line. Eh? Next time you stab me in the back, do it to my face.
But hey, he took it seriously. This is what I mean. There's something to study about Mal and Nathan Fillion and the writing approaching him in terms of, we're in like a nightmare world now for characters that just cannot deliver sincerity properly, or they spam insincerity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, Mal's like pitch perfect with everything, even though a lot of his lines are goofy, a lot of his lines are comedic, but a lot of his lines are very serious, and there's never a problem in terms of understanding the difference and believing the difference.
And it helps when you have a good actor to deliver them.
He's so good. He deserved to play Mal forever. And yeah, I think this episode was a needed and good block for building on River, but also Simon and their relationship together, sort of thing. It's you kind of need to do the work for all of them if you're going to have all of them.
Yeah, I think you can forgive her having been sidelined a little, because now it's time to explore her a bit more.
Yeah, it seems they're cranking her up a bit, and the, to an extent, yes, it's like it's almost more difficult to explore her because the whole point of exploring her is a payoff in and of itself for the characters, even to discover like what's going on with her.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I find myself saying this about pretty much every episode, but very much enjoyed it. I thought the heist aspect of the hospital break-in was all well done, but obviously it takes a turn that you don't expect. But like, that's still, like, it's still going on while you've still got the subplot with, or should I say, the main plot with Jane having sold them out to the feds, but trying to cover for himself and trying to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all fits together pretty neatly. There's a lot going on, and yeah, ultimately the resolution between him and Mal, I thought, was handled really well, and I think it's great to see that really ruthless side of Mal when it comes to someone in his own crew screwing them over.
Yeah, and it's kind of another reason, because you said when we'd started, it's almost like a focused on Jane, River, and Simon, and it's kind of like the way they format each of these episodes is, if you picture the 9, several get pushed up and then they pulled back down, and a different several get pushed up, they pulled back down as each episode progresses, and it sort of balances out as it goes along, because you can't do all 9 every episode. It's going to get to be a weird experience, and the bigger focus gives you more insight into any given character, and that it's something that then sits on your head when you're doing a different episode with different characters, that these are who are in the background. They are real people, and we've seen what they think and feel.
I do wonder if, like, part of the difficulty of something like this is just a lot of the time the dimensions of the ship that you're working in, for example. Like, to take another show as an example, like the Star Trek. The ship that they're in is just physically large, and so it's quite easy to have an episode that's focused on just 2 or 3 characters, and have others who are just not even like showing up because they're in a completely different area. They're not relevant to this, and so you don't need to see them here. With the ship they're in, it's all very small. It's all very self-contained, and it's difficult to just push people out completely because like they have to be somewhere. And I wonder if that's part of the problem of like having to juggle it.
I mean, I'd have to assume there was quite a bit of effort being put into just like, where is everybody today on the ship, and how are we going to get it so that we let the audience know what they're all up to and how they're all doing it, instead of just having like a big meal every time or something.
Yeah.
Take advantage of the ship, but also it's kind of annoying to make sure that you get a full scope of it. You know, take advantage of it in terms of actually making people believe it's a ship.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, good fun. And yeah, like a nice, actually quite serious ending for it too. So I like it. And it's interesting to see where they're going to go with River as well. So that is all good. But for people who are watching this, well, that is the end of our coverage for Firefly episode 9. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found something interesting for us to be talking about there for 45 minutes, so we haven't bored you too much.
5 episodes left.
Yeah. And then that's it. But yes, tune in next time where we'll be covering episode 10, which is War Stories.
Yes.
But right now, that is all we've got for today. So go away now.
Bye.